Game introductions vary wildly between games. What actually constitutes a introduction does vary from genre to genre. In the case of an RPG, I consider it any content in the game that is before the first real boss fight. That is to say, a boss fight which you could potentially lose, even if losing is very unlikely. Breath of Fire 3 does an excellent job with its introduction. Being a rare example of an introduction with multiple phases, it does an excellent job of foreshadowing events much later in the game, while at the same time making a clear demonstration of what kind of world this game takes place in. It starts in a mine, where our hero, Ryu, is about to be freed by some explosives. He is in his dragon whelp form, and the workers in the mine are terrified that there's a dragon walking around. Exactly how aware Ryu is of what's going on at this moment isn't clear, but some of the workers do try to attack him, and it goes poorly for them. There are some excellent details in this mine. For example, you might notice that they're actually mining out an ancient dragon corpse. Ryu is ultimately subdued when the spirit of this ancient dragon speaks to him. He's then loaded in a cage onto a small train, which you do escape from with a little rocking of the D-pad. This does make me curious to what fate awaited him had he stayed on the train, but of course, you have to escape in order to continue the game. It's here that we're introduced to some other characters. Ray, a cat man, finds Ryu passed out by his broken cage. He takes him home and introduces him to another character, Tipo. During their exchange, we find out that times are tough right now. These two scrape by as thieves. We do get some foreshadowing of things to come, as we see what Ryu is dreaming about, showing us things that won't be relevant for another 40 or 50 hours of gameplay. Once Ryu wakes up, we can reconnect with the other two, at which point Ray will steal you some clothes. And now you can actually get into some random encounters, where you will find each of your three characters does have a defined role. Ray being a thief, Tipu having some attack magic, and Ryu being the only one with a healing spell. You can also find out that with times being tough, the village that they live near is quite done with Ray and Tipu's antics. Still, they're going to try and teach Ryu the ropes of being a thief. It doesn't go very well, as Ryu is profoundly unsuited to this variety of work. And when they do try to rob a house, it goes poorly when the inhabitants come home early. Like everyone else in these parts, he's quite done with Ray and Tipu and their thieving. But he's willing to let them go in exchange for some honest work. He wants Ray to take down a beast that has been troubling the local community, stealing crops and livestock, while only asking Ryu and Tipu to cut some firewood for him, which does introduce us to Breath of Fire 3's love of minigames. As for whatever reason, at several points during the game, you will have to do a minigame at least once to progress the story. This is both the first and easiest occurrence of this. But after cutting your firewood, you're free to leave and pursue Ray. When you catch up with him, he's surprised, and also a little disappointed, as he did have a trick he was going to use, but can't use in your presence. A bit more of that foreshadowing, and again for much, much later. But immediately after finding Ray, you do get to fight the beast he was after, the New, which looks like a monstrous baboon that has multiple snakes growing out of its back. But you only manage to wound this creature. You have to continue your hunt, and follow it into its lair. And you clearly heard it, as there is a blood trail for you to follow. But once you track it down and deliver the final blow, it still tries to protect something with its last breath. And we find what it was trying to protect is quite tragic. The reason the New was stealing livestock and crops was to feed its young, or at least it thought that's what it was doing. As it's made clear, these cubs passed on a while ago. But the New kept bringing them food, not understanding this. And this is where the game shows you that not everything is as it seems. The New was never a monster. It was just a mother doing what she thought was right. And things not being exactly what they seem to be is a theme that will keep echoing throughout the rest of this game. And it's with this revelation that the introduction of this game is over. As the new is a very real threat if you haven't leveled up at least a little. From this point on, things will get more complicated and certainly more challenging. New mechanics will be introduced like the Master and Apprentice system, but we were only here to talk about the introduction. And Breath of Fire 3's introduction may be the finest example for an RPG on the PlayStation 1. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.